Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Offsides and On One, a hockey podcast where we're loud, proud, and probably in the penalty box. I'm your host, Devin Moore, and we have a lot, seriously a lot to talk about this week, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so first up, I'm going to get into some top headlines from around the league, and we're going to cover some milestones to begin. So with our first milestone, since the last episode, some big milestones have been hit around the league, and the biggest, of course, was that Alex Ovechkin finally hit 1,000 goals. Ovi scored that historic goal on March 22nd in the Capitals' 3-2 overtime loss to the Avalanche. He scored the goal from his office, of course, in the left circle, and this goal now puts him just 16 behind Wayne Gretzky, who still holds the record for most regular season and playoff goals combined. Gretzky has 1,016. Next up, also since the last episode, Chris Letang became the 21st defenseman in NHL history to record 800 career points in the Penguins' 6-2 loss to the Avalanche on March 24th. Tanger reached the milestone off an assist on Igor Chinakov's bomb of a goal, and he is also just one of 4 active defensemen to reach this milestone. He now joins Victor Hedman, Brent Burns, and fellow Penguin Erik Karlsson as the only active defenseman to reach this milestone. Also on the 24th, Connor McDavid scored his 400th career goal in the Oilers' 5-2 win over the Mammoth. He also got his 401st goal in this game, and with an assist on the empty netter, he collected his 1,200th career point. This makes him the 115th player in NHL history to reach that mark, and just the 5th player in Oilers history to record 400 goals. In other news, we have 2 teams that have officially secured their spot in the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs. Both the Avs and the Stars have clinched a playoff spot. They'll probably be the only 2 teams to officially clinch a spot for a while. The next will probably be the Wild, because things are so tightly contested in the East, and the skill gap in the West is pretty large. No offense to the teams out West, but the difference in points is kind of diabolical. We'll talk more about all of that later. Now, as for the total opposite, the Canucks have officially become the first team to be eliminated from playoff contention this season. Congrats on Gavin McKenna, Vancouver. But anyway, a sort of off topic, but also totally on topic. I knew that the Canucks were really bad this season, obviously, but I didn't realize how bad they were. As of the beginning of this week, the Canucks record is 21-43-8. That's crazy work. 21-43-8. Again, at the start of this week, the Canucks have scored 50 points. Yeah, just 50 points the entire season. For reference, the second worst team in the Pacific is the Flames, and they have 70 points. And the second worst record in the league right now is the Blackhawks, who have 67 points, which is very fitting. But anyway, my point is the Canucks are really, really bad. And since writing the script for this episode, the New York Rangers have also been eliminated from playoff contention, so they join the Canucks as the only 2 teams so far to be officially eliminated from contention. Now, speaking of somebody I just mentioned, Gavin McKenna, future Vancouver Canuck, let's go ahead and talk about some college hockey. So I want to talk about the Women's Frozen Four to begin. Last week, we saw the conclusion of the Women's Frozen Four tournament. The games were held on March 20th and 21st in Happy Valley, home of the Penn State Nittany Lions. The semifinals, held on the 20th, saw number 1 ranked Ohio State versus number 5 Northeastern, and number 2 Wisconsin versus number 3 Penn State. In the first semifinal game, the Ohio State Buckeyes beat the Huskies 5-0, and then the Wisconsin Badgers and the Nittany Lions put on a show in the second semifinal game. Wisconsin went on to beat Penn State 4-3 in an overtime thriller where Kristen Sims scored the game-winning power play goal just 50 seconds into the overtime period. This goal meant that the Badgers were headed to their 4th consecutive national championship game. This set up a meeting for the national championship between the Wisconsin Badgers and the Ohio State Buckeyes for the 3rd year in a row. The national championship was held on March 22nd, where the Badgers would go on to beat the Buckeyes 3-2, securing their 2nd straight NCAA title. Claire Enright scored the game-winning goal for Wisconsin, and Ava McNaughton made 34 saves to keep them in the game. Not only did the Badgers go back-to-back, but this was their 5th national title in just the last 7 years. This win was the 9th win in the program's history, and it officially has solidified Wisconsin as one of the greatest dynasties in women's hockey. As I mentioned earlier, Ava McNaughton made 34 saves in this game and was named the most outstanding player in the tournament, largely because of that. So now let's go ahead and get into the men's Frozen Four. So obviously the men's tournament hasn't started yet, but it is set to take place on April 9th through 11th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The playoff picture on the men's side has been pretty messy, especially when we saw Gavin McKenna's Nittany Lions make a first-round exit against Minnesota Duluth. The teams in this year's Frozen Four have officially been decided and include number 12 Wisconsin, who upset number 3 Michigan State in an overtime thriller to send them to the tournament. Wisconsin will go and play number 2 North Dakota in the semifinal game 2 on April 9th. And then we'll see number 1 Michigan State play Denver, who beat the defending champs Western Michigan 6-2 to advance to the Frozen Four. The winners of those semifinal games will face off in the national championship, which will be held on April 11th, and you'll be able to catch all of that on ESPN like usual. So before I get into some NHL playoff action, I have a few more updates from around the sport. Recently, the NHL announced that the Seattle Kraken will take on the Carolina Hurricanes in the 2026 Global Series. The games will be played in Helsinki, Finland on November 12th and 14th, and this series joins the games in Germany, which are between the Blackhawks and the Senators, to complete the league's lineup for the overseas action next season. Now, in some other news, some news closer to home, Sidney Crosby made his return to the Pittsburgh Penguins and then left again. So what happened was Sid left the game early on March 26 against the Sens after his leg got tangled up in a collision that seemed to aggravate his knee injury that he suffered in Milan that's kept him out most of March. Thankfully, he wasn't out long, though. The captain only missed one game, which was Saturday when the Pens got absolutely whooped by the Stars. And he returned Monday night against the Islanders, where the Pens made a dominant statement to the Eastern Conference by dropping 8 goals. 7 of those goals were unanswered, by the way, on their Metro rivals. Unfortunately for the Pens, Evgeny Malkin is still out, but his status was changed to day-to-day, and he's skated ahead of the Islanders' downfall game, so hopefully G is back soon. Also, speaking of Sid, he scored his 1100th NHL assist during that 8-3 win over the Isles, so basically just putting it out there that the Penguins are winning the Stanley Cup. I don't care what you all have to say, you can never escape me and my Penguins propaganda. Sorry, but Ben Kindle is the next one. What else can I say? Speaking of next ones, Macklin Celebrini scored his 100th point in the Sharks' thrilling 5-3 win over the Blues Monday night. Celebrini had 2 goals in this game and an assist to record his first 100-point season of his NHL career. With this milestone, he becomes just the 6th teenager in NHL history to record at least 100 points in a season. He joins some lauded company, including Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and of course, Sidney Crosby with this milestone. Now, for some news outside the NHL, finally, Hillary Knight has been officially activated from LTIR and will return to the tournament for her first time since before the Olympic Games in Milan. Also in the PWHL, the absolute wall, Aaron Frankel, has recorded the longest shutout streak in PWHL history. The gold medal winning goaltender has shut out everyone for the last 9 periods of PWHL action. That's 180 minutes of hockey with no goals allowed. This made her current shutout streak 3 games in a row, and she now has 7 shutouts this season. And for reference, Ilya Sorokin leads the NHL in shutouts this season. He also has 7. Some more PWHL news. It is also widely believed that the biggest target for the PWHL's next franchise is Chicago. I was really hoping, fingers crossed, that it was going to be Pittsburgh, but it's really looking good for Chicago right now. They had a really successful takeover tour game there at Allstate Arena that drew over 10,000 fans, and the PWHL has been looking to expand the league with 2 more teams before they take a bit of an expansion break, and it's really been heavily speculated that Chicago will be home to this new expansion team. which I think would be really cool. And honestly, like, I personally don't have a PWHL team. I sort of just have players that I like because it's the same issue with me in the NBA. Pittsburgh doesn't have an NBA team, so I don't really like a specific team. I just like players. Like, Luka's my favorite player, Luka Doncic. So, but my point is, I'm like that with the PWHL, but maybe if Pittsburgh's not going to get a team, maybe I could pick Chicago as my favorite team. So, who knows? We'll see who goes there. Hillary Knight, if you decide to go play in Chicago, that's my favorite team because she's my favorite player. So, who knows if she goes to Chicago? You might make a Chicago fan out of me. Okay, lastly, for news before we get into some playoff talk, the Vegas Golden Knights made a crazy move when they fired head coach Bruce Cassidy on March 29th, just 2 weeks ahead of the playoffs. They are replacing him with none other than John Tortorella. Please, someone pray for Mitch Marner. Somebody pray for Mitch Marner. This isn't looking good. But anyway, before the move, the Vegas Golden Knights had lost 6 of their last 7 games, and 3 of those losses were in a row. Vegas is currently 3rd in the Pacific Division, and they're still on track to make the playoffs. So, this move is a little bit confusing. Again, this move shocked most people, not because of the move itself, really, but because of the timing. Vegas only has 8 games left in the regular season, and even with their recent struggles, they still have 4 points on the Kings, who are behind them in the standings and are currently in a wildcard spot. As most of us know, Torts is mostly known for whipping a team into shape by absolutely tearing the locker room apart from the inside out, and that's putting it nicely. His coaching stints are usually pretty short, but in that time, he's always able to make big changes. He's a Stanley Cup champion, and he knows how to win, and even if his methods are kind of controversial, I think he's going to be a good fit for these Golden Knights. His abrasive, high-pressure sort of coaching style matches the vibes of the Golden Knights, and just, I don't know. The vibes match. I can't describe it, but he just seems like he's going to fit in there pretty well. And, if he can't coach in Philly, I think that his personality next best fits in Vegas. So, whatever. But, again, seriously, pray for Mitch Marner. I really have a feeling that he is not excited about this coaching change because, oh boy, is he going to get called out. Poor guy. So now with all of the major news out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some playoff talk. So as of today, which is March 31st, teams have just 7 to 9 games left. It ranges across the league. And the regular season wraps up on April 16th and the playoffs begin on the 18th. So before I get into all of this is very subject to change, and I'm sure it will change before this episode is uploaded, so just know that. So as of Tuesday morning when I'm recording this, here are the standings. In the Atlantic, the Tampa Bay Lightning lead, but Buffalo is right on their tail. Both of those teams are tied at 98 points with the first and second spots, and the Canadiens are currently in that last Atlantic playoff spot with 94 points. Then in the Metro, the Hurricanes are leading with 98 points, the Penguins sit in second place with 90 points, and the Islanders are in third with 89 points. As for the Eastern wildcard race, right now the Bruins and the Blue Jackets hold those 2 spaces, but the Senators, Red Wings, and the Flyers could all make a push for the Jackets spot. Columbus currently has 88 points, and all 3 of those teams I just mentioned sit at 86 points. So they could pose a very good chance of pushing their way up into that last wildcard spot. Out west, we already know that the Avs and the Stars have secured their places in the Central, and the Wild will likely lock that 3rd place very soon because the Mammoth are about 12 points back from the Wild. In the Pacific, the Ducks lead with 87 points, the Oilers sit behind them in second place with 83 points, and then the Golden Knights are in third with 82 points. Now, the wildcard race and the playoff race aren't nearly as interesting out west as they are in the East, but, it's easier to follow, so makes my life a little bit easier. It doesn't change every night. But for the Western wildcard race, the Mammoth hold the number 1 spot with 82 points, and then the Predators hold the 2nd spot with 77 points. The Kings, Kraken, and the Sharks could all technically push for that playoff spot. The Kings currently sit at 76 points, and the Kraken and Sharks are both at 75 points, so expect that race for the final wildcard spot to heat up in the next few games. It could be really cool to see the Sharks especially make that jump, because we'd get to see those young stars in their first playoffs. So maybe keep your fingers crossed for that one. Alright, so that's going to be enough playoff talk for this episode, and now we're going to go ahead and get into this week's Red Line Rant. Okay, so is this a Penguins-centered topic? Yes, a bit. Is all the evidence I'm using from Penguins games? Yes, but this issue is a league-wide issue. The issues, inconsistencies, and utter confusion that has been surrounding goaltender interference lately seriously needs to be studied. Now, I mentioned the Pens because, objectively, we have been the most affected by this nonsense, and most of the controversial rulings have impacted this team in one way or another. So yes, I'm making this about Pittsburgh. Are you new here? Hello. But, so if you've been living under a rock, basically goaltender interference calls have been under major scrutiny lately in the NHL. So much so that Sportsnet has officially made a goaltender interference tracker that tracks all goaltender interference calls and the rulings. But the main calls that I want to focus on for this were on Saturday, March 21st, which was Penguins versus Jets, and then Tuesday, March 24th, which was Avalanche versus Penguins. So first off, the most ridiculous ruling of all of these calls that I just mentioned was definitely Winnipeg versus Pittsburgh. So on this play, the Jets had an odd man rush where Brad Lambert got the first shot off, but it was stopped by Artur Shilovs. Then Morgan Barron went in and followed through with a rebound shot, and on this rebound shot, Barron collided with Erik Karlsson, who was trying to defend, and then both players crashed into Artur Shilovs. The puck then crosses the line, and the call on the ice was a good goal. Then, of course, thinking, that's crazy, that's goaltender interference, Dan Muse challenges the goal for goaltender interference, and after a review of the call, it was decided that due to initial contact by the Pittsburgh defenseman, that there was no interference on the play, even though Barron pushed Karlsson into Shilovs. Now, I've had this clip up on the screen for you to see and decide for yourself, and I don't know about you, but to me, that kind of looks like Barron pushed Karlsson into Shilovs. I mean, I don't know, but let's be serious here. So this call has quickly spread around the NHL fan base as the poster child of terrible goalie interference calls and decisions. I mean, if we're following the rule book, Barron pushes both himself and Karlsson into the goaltender. Not Karlsson falling into his own goaltender, but being pushed into his goaltender, which means it was interference. All caps, it was interference. So now, on to the Pens versus Avs on the 24th. So on this play, Justin Brazeau makes contact with Avs goalie Scott Wedgwood at the edge of Wedgwood's crease. He's sort of kind of shoved a little bit into the goalie because Devon Taves causes him to squeeze in between the two, but this was a similar play to the one we just looked at, but the Pens were on the opposite side of this. So this goal was called off for goaltender interference because, quote, Brazeau contacted Scott Wedgwood in his crease and impaired his ability to play his position prior to the goal. Now, I do personally think this was interference. Just look at the play. This is kind of textbook goaltender interference. Braz clearly knocks down the goaltender in his crease, and, he had a little help from Devon Taves, but that's irrelevant. Now, according to Rule 69.1 in the official NHL rulebook, quote, goals should be disallowed only if, 1, an attacking player, either by his positioning or by contact, impairs the goaltender's ability to move freely within his crease or defending his goal. Did you hear that? You clocked that? Now, if we're following that rule, don't you think that other goals shouldn't have counted? I mean, like, I'm just a jag off with a microphone here, but, like, are we serious? Now, there are so many other examples of this that have happened across the league lately that have been just ridiculous and have made goaltender interference even harder to understand. But basically, if you don't understand goaltender interference, the gist of it is that the refs just make up whatever they want and feel like, so there are no rules, really. This recent stretch of stupid calls has had a lot of fans calling for change with referees. Clearly, I watch a lot of hockey, and anyone like myself has surely noticed the blatant discrepancies across the league with all sorts of calls, not just goalie interference. I personally think this needs major addressing from the league this summer, and something has to change. They just managed to do it in the NFL, so like it can be done, but something has got to give with these. So let's go ahead and do a ref summer camp and get them all on the same page, because it's just not fair to anyone. As of right now, the league sees nothing wrong with the way that games are being called, but with the way that things are going, if we keep calling terrible games like this, I could see some major controversial calls being made in the postseason that have a lot higher stakes than the calls do right now. So if a terrible call is made that causes someone's season to end or causes them to lose the greatest prize in sports, the league's going to have to do something about it. They're just going to have no choice. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the red line rant. I could have ranted a lot more, but I'm trying to be nice and polite this episode. If any of you noticed, I was being so nice to John Tortorella earlier, so I'm trying to be nice to everyone and everything, you know? Trying my hardest here. Okay, so before we get into the winners and losers of this week, we do have a few internet shenanigans. I saw this first internet shenanigan on TikTok from NHL Europe, which if you follow NHL Europe on TikTok, you know the absolute fever dream of a TikTok account that they have over there, but this was one that kind of stuck out to me. So Dan Vladar, the goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers, was armed and dangerous with a skate blade. So basically what happened was, in a game versus the Red Wings, he lost his skate blade, and he, after the whistle was blown, he just picked it up and then was just standing there menacingly holding it like it was like a shiv or something. He looked like he was just about to attack anybody who came too close to his crease, but yeah, he was just very menacing looking, sitting there with his skate blade standing next to the ref waiting on a change. So just sitting there waiting for his athletic trainer holding it. All these goalie interference calls, they gotta stay armed now, so this is what the league has come to, I guess. Okay, next up, this was something that made me laugh so hard. So Carey Price was recently on an episode of Never Offside, which is a great hockey podcast. You should go check it out. But he was there for a few minutes, and they asked him about his skincare routine. So we got a bit of an insight to Carey Price's skincare routine, who, if you don't know, has just the most gorgeous complexion. It's like, I'm so jealous, and I think everybody on the pod was jealous that this was his routine. So basically what he said that he does is just put lotion on every 2 weeks. He said he just uses moisturizer whenever his face is dry, and that's it, which is ridiculous, because I use like 18 different products on my face and my skin still doesn't look like his, and he just uses moisturizer twice a week. So next up for internet shenanigans, this is an internet shenanigan and also a TV shenanigan, but TJ Oshie and PK Subban had a major pillow fight during intermission of the Oilers and Golden Knights game. Connor McDavid had said in an interview that the game was sort of like a pillow fight, and some pillows appeared on set, and PK Subban and TJ Oshie absolutely went wild, attacking each other with some pillows. It was absolutely hilarious. TJ Oshie jumped and just smacked PK with the pillow at the end of the video. It was hilarious. But so got some craziness going on ESPN. I think PK and TJ are the only thing that are saving ESPN panels right now, because Lord knows Mark Messier ain't doing nothing for him. Sorry, Mark. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. He scares me. I still think he's a vampire. ESPN, please don't sue me. Thank you. Okay, so our last internet shenanigan is going to be from Carolina when William Byron was invited to drive the Zamboni at the Canes rink, and he did some donuts on the ice on the Zamboni, which I thought was hilarious. If you don't know, William Byron is a NASCAR driver, and the Carolina Hurricanes had him over for a day, and he took some laps of the Zamboni and then did some donuts, which was just unbelievable. This world's slowest donuts, I think. I don't think William Byron has ever gone slower than he did on that Zamboni. Alright, that's pretty much going to wrap up the internet shenanigans for today. So now let's go ahead and get into our winners and losers of this week. So we only have one of each this week. And first up, our winner is going to be Ryan Reeves for being the hockeyest hockey player ever. So I first saw this clip on TikTok and it was just so icky. It was so gross. So basically, Ryan Reeves relocated his dislocated finger. He put it back into place on the ice right after a tilt with the Flyers' Garrett Wilson. They had a pretty nasty tilt that was pretty good. It was a pretty good fight, and Revo's finger had become dislocated at some point throughout the fight, and he just popped it right back into place. Like, just didn't even faze him. It was so gross. It was so nasty, but he is the hockeyest hockey player ever, I think. He's one of the few tough guys that we have left in this league, so protect Revo at all costs. Okay, so like I said, we only have one winner this week, and we also only have one loser. And can you guess who the loser is this week? It's the refs. Just do better. Just do better. Like, just these stupid, ridiculous calls over and over and over with all sorts of different things all across the league. We're tired of it. Everybody's tired of it. Just do better. Let's get a ref camp this summer that teaches them how to ref again, because clearly they forgot. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the winners and losers. And guess what I have this week? I finally got it. I have the bag of hockey cards. Don't even worry, y'all. I have it. So we're going to go ahead now and get into bag of hockey cards. Now, the other day, I went through a bunch of my hockey cards and put some new ones in the bag. So we have some new additions. The bag is almost totally full. Like, it's heavy. This is a heavy bag of cards. There's a lot in here. So I'm going to go ahead. I did give it a bit of a stir, but I'm going to go ahead and pick one now. Alright, I've got one. This one's speaking to me. Let's see who it is. Oh, it's Jamie Benn. That's fitting. Only one of two teams to clinch a playoff spot. The captain of the Dallas Stars, Jamie Benn. What year is this card from? This is a 2021 card from quite a while ago. This is one of those nice Upper Deck cards. These are my favorite. If you're ever looking to buy me hockey cards for any reason, I don't know why you would be, but for any reason, if you want to send me hockey cards, the Upper Deck ones, those are the best ones. Send me those ones. I always get the cheap, like, MVP ones. I think those are still Upper Deck brand, but, like, the MVP cheaper ones, I always get those because they're a Target and they're $20 a box. But, like, the Upper Deck ones, those are the ones. Spring for a little more expensive card because they're just so nice. But yeah, this is a pretty cool card. Jamie Benn used to be, like, one of my favorite people to watch when I was little. I don't know why. I just for some reason thought he was really cool. And a couple years ago, they still have a pretty good rivalry today, but back when the Avs won the Cup a few years ago, that Stars-Avs rivalry was super intense, and that was so much fun to watch. Jamie Benn and Nathan McKinnon and Gabe Landeskog, all those guys. And I used to love Ben Bishop when I was little too, so the Stars were a great team for me to watch because I love Jamie Benn and Ben Bishop. I don't know exactly what it means for the week. I don't know what it means luck-wise or anything like that, but if you like Jamie Benn, take it as good luck. If you're an Avs fan, maybe take it as a warning. I don't know. Who knows? Hockey's a crazy sport. Things change like crazy all the time, so you never know. I think that's pretty much all I've got for this week. And this episode is longer than last week. I had a lot more things to cover this week, which is good. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go and follow all the social media accounts. Everything will be linked in the description. And pay a little bit more attention next hockey games you watch to the ridiculous calls and non-calls. And develop an opinion for yourself on what you think about the refs right now, because they're terrible. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for listening all the way through. And yeah, I'll see you next episode. Make sure to follow me on TikTok. Okay, bye.